Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and make the invisible visible. We are talking about air pollution, a silent story that's pretty much written in every single breath we take.
Okay, let's just start with this because it's a really startling fact that brings this whole invisible threat right into focus. Just imagine that. By just going about your day in some of the world's biggest cities, your lungs are taking the same kind of hit as a heavy smoker. That's the reality we're dealing with. So, what exactly is pollution when we boil it down? Well, at its core, it's any change to our environment that we don't want, that's harmful, and that affects pretty much every living thing. It's when contaminants get introduced that mess with the natural balance, turning our air and water from life-sustaining to potentially life-threatening.
So let's actually break down what's making our air so bad. Because this isn't just about a hazy skyline. It's about what we are physically breathing into our bodies with every single breath.
Right. So the stuff that's actually causing all this pollution, we call them pollutants, they come from two very different places. Some are natural, sure, but the ones doing the most damage, they have a much more familiar source, one we see literally every day.
Look, nature definitely plays a role. You've got volcanic eruptions, forest fires, stuff like that. But then take a look at the man-made sources. The vast majority of the most dangerous pollutants, they come from us. We're talking about the exhaust from our cars, the smoke pouring out of factory smokestacks, and the constant burning of fossil fuels and plastics. This is where the problem really blows up.
And get this, over 90% of all global air pollution is caused by just a handful of these major gaseous pollutants. These are the big four you're looking at: oxides of sulfur and nitrogen, carbon monoxide, and hydrocarbons. They're basically the main ingredients in the toxic cocktail that we call polluted air.
Now, among those, carbon monoxide is especially nasty because it's a silent killer. It gets produced when fuels, like gasoline or wood, don't burn completely. And since it's totally invisible and has absolutely no smell, you could be breathing it in and have no idea. It is a true invisible threat.
And here's the really scary part, how it basically launches a hostile takeover of your body. When you breathe it in, CO latches onto the hemoglobin in your red blood cells. The very molecules that are supposed to be carrying oxygen. The big problem is, it binds about 200 times more strongly than oxygen does, so it's effectively hijacking your body's entire delivery system and starving your vital organs of the oxygen they need to survive.
Okay, now let's zoom out for a second and see how this whole thing builds from a personal threat into a full-blown planetary one. Because the same pollutants that are harming our bodies are also waging a war on our environment on a massive scale.
So, what do you think happens when pollutants like sulfur and nitrogen oxides, the stuff from factories and cars, rise way up into the atmosphere? They don't just vanish. Nope. They interact with the most basic part of our weather, water. And that is where things get really wild.
They mix with water vapor in the clouds, and then they fall back down to Earth as acid rain. Now, to be fair, even normal rain is a little bit acidic, with a pH of about 5.6. But acid rain, it can have a pH of 3.5 or even lower. We're talking as acidic as vinegar or lemon juice. Just imagine that falling from the sky.
And the chemistry that makes this happen is, believe it or not, surprisingly simple. Sulfur dioxide mixes with water, and boom, you get sulfuric acid. Nitrogen dioxide mixes with water, and you get nitric acid. These are serious corrosive industrial acids being cooked up right in our own atmosphere.
And the fallout from this is huge. This acid rain damages pretty much everything it touches. It strips nutrients from the soil, which kills forests. It makes lakes and rivers too acidic for fish and other life. It literally eats away at stone buildings and historical monuments, like the Taj Mahal. And of course, it harms our own respiratory systems. It is a slow-motion disaster.
But acid rain isn't the only global crisis that these pollutants are fueling. They're also cranking up the intensity of the greenhouse effect. This is the process where certain gases in our atmosphere act like the glass in a greenhouse, trapping the sun's heat.
Now, this effect, in and of itself, is not a bad thing. Actually, it's absolutely essential for life on Earth. This natural blanket of gases is what keeps our planet at a comfortable, livable temperature. Without it, the Earth would just be a frozen rock. So yeah, we need it, but only to a point.
See, the problem is that our constant pumping of gases like carbon dioxide and methane into the air is like adding layer after layer after layer to that blanket. It's getting so thick that it's starting to suffocate the planet, trapping way too much heat and causing everything to dangerously overheat. And this superheating phenomenon, that's what we call global warming. It's this steady, really alarming rise in our planet's average temperature. It's disrupting climate patterns, melting ice caps, and threatening entire ecosystems around the world. It's like the Earth has a fever, and we're the cause. Faced with all these huge challenges, it is so easy to feel overwhelmed. I get it. But the good news is we are not helpless here. We already have the knowledge and the solutions to start clearing the air, and even reversing some of this damage. It's time to start fighting back. A massive first step is changing our energy source. This means moving away from the internal combustion engine and really embracing electric vehicles. It means using cleaner substitute fuels like compressed natural gas or CNG, which burns way more cleanly than gasoline or diesel. We can even explore other alternatives like alcohols. The point is, the options are there. And beyond just finding new fuels, we've also come up with some pretty brilliant technologies to tackle pollution before it even gets a chance to escape into the atmosphere. We can literally scrub the pollution right out at the source. Take catalytic converters, for example. They're standard in most cars now. They use precious metals to trigger chemical reactions that turn harmful gases like carbon monoxide into much safer ones. And then you have industrial scrubbers and factory smokestacks that use a fine spray of water to literally wash pollutants like sulfur dioxide right out of the emissions. It's kind of like giving the smoke a shower before it leaves. So, we get it now. We understand the problem, from how it affects us personally to how it affects the entire planet, and we have the tools to fix it. Which really just leaves us with one final very important question to think about. Knowing what we know and having the power to make a change, what role will each of us play in the story of clearing our air? The next chapter is really up to us.